Improper to omit in this first official act my fervent supplications to that almighty being who rules over the universe, who presides in the councils of nations and whose providential aids can supply every human defect. In tendering this homage to the great author of every public and private good, I assure myself that it expresses your sentiments, not less than my own, nor those of my fellow citizens at large less than either. No people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than the people of the United States. George Washington had no problem acknowledging God, and neither did that first Congress. September 25th of 1789, they finally decided on the proper words. You know what they did on September 25th, 1789? Right after they finished the words, they devised a resolution. I have it in my hand. They resolved that a joint committee of both houses be directed to wait upon the President and request that he recommend to the people a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts the many and signal favors of Almighty God, especially by affording them an opportunity peaceably to establish a constitution of government for their safety and happiness. Do you know what they first did after they formed the First Amendment? That amendment that they did today say forbids us from acknowledging God, forbids us from recognizing the God of the Holy Scriptures, the one who gave us the Ten Commandments. Do you know what they did? They asked the President and resolved in that resolution to direct a day of public thanksgiving and prayer. And for the next 170 years, the acknowledgement of God was a basis for our schools. It was a basis for our homes. It was a basis for our political system. The acknowledgement of God was not prohibited, but in 1962, something strange happened. The petitioners argue the state's use of the Regent's Prayer in its public school system breaches the constitutional wall of separation between church and state. Federalist 43 of January 23rd, 1788, James Madison said that our Constitution was founded upon the laws of nature and of nature's God, but the courts of our day have found a right of privacy in the Bill of Rights, which doesn't exist. First, they've used that right to take the lives of millions of unborn children in a procedure called abortion. And now, just a few days ago, they find a right to commit sodomy, historically known as a crime against nature. Jesus spoke in his day of such a legal system. He said, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, ye hypocrites! For ye pay tithe of mint, anise, and cumin, and omit the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought you have done, and not to leave the other undone. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel." Well, you might be surprised to find out what the 11th Circuit said in my case. Because, you know, there's even a harder answer to it. They said, such acknowledgments such as one nation under God, so help me God, and in God we trust, are immune from Establishment Clause challenges because they've lost through rote repetition any significant religious content. Do you know what they just told us? They said you can say God, you can say in God we trust as long as it doesn't mean anything. Well, I'm going to tell you that gives new meaning to thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. But Jesus didn't place all the blame on the legal establishment. Speaking to the scribes and Pharisees in Matthew the 15th chapter, he said, "Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, this people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth, and they honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for commandments the doctrines of men." I want to quote the judge in the court when he said, "I think that is basically it. You know, I would almost think I would have to start my opinion that way. The issue is Can the state acknowledge God? Separation of church and state is a basic doctrine. But the meaning of that has a far different meaning than what you've been led to believe. You know, the wall of separation between church and state, that phrase comes from a letter by Thomas Jefferson on January 1st of 1802. I have his letter. Did he have any hesitancy to acknowledge God? He ends the letter by saying, I reciprocate your kind prayers for protection and blessings of the common Father and Creator of man. Did he have a hard time acknowledging God in our country? I don't know. He's the one that wrote the declaration that said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. He said, God gave us our rights. Government's only role is to secure them for us. And if it doesn't, it should be abolished. Did he separate God and government? And did he mean to separate the worship of God from our government? I don't know. That was January 1st of 1802. On January 3rd, he was in church listening to a Baptist minister by the name of John Leland in Congress, where they held church throughout his administration. You want to know what justice is? Justice is administration of God's law to every individual, regardless of what he thinks. I don't care if you're a Jew, a Christian, or an atheist. When you steal, you're punished according to the law, not by what you believe. That's God's law. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Those are duties owed to the Creator God. Now, the way you perform those duties makes it religion. That was the definition of religion. That's the definition these courts today can't take. That's how they're subverting justice. They can't define their words. The judge in the district court used the word religion or religious over 150 times, and then he said, I don't have the expertise to define it. In fact, it's dangerous and unwise to define it. And the plaintiffs can't define it, and I don't want to accept Chief Justice Moore's definition, but my definition was the United States Supreme Court definition. The duties which we owe to the Creator in the manner of discharging it. Honor thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet. These are laws under which government operates. The first table of the law represents where the state is. And Jesus said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's.